Welcome to Daily Review, your daily dose of literary exploration. We dive into books that spark curiosity and ignite growth.
That's right. And while our passion often leads us to nonfiction reads that empower and improve your life, really, no book is off limits.
Exactly. From gripping thrillers to insightful memoirs, compelling fiction, historical accounts, we're here to share and discuss all the interesting reads we discover.
So tune in for your next great book idea.
And thank you so much for tuning in to Daily Review. We truly appreciate you joining us for your daily dose of literary exploration. Your support means the world to us.
It really does. It helps us continue to share these amazing books with you. If you're enjoying what you hear, please think about taking a moment to subscribe, rate, like, comment, on whatever platform you're listening from.
Yeah, that really helps support our channel and lets us get better and bring you even more great content.
And if today's review sparks your interest, maybe you're ready to dive into a copy of the book.
Please consider using the link in our description to make your purchase. It makes it easy for you to get the book, but it also directly supports our channel and the author.
Absolutely. It allows us to keep bringing you more great content. Thanks again for being part of the Daily Review community.
Okay, so today we're diving into a really fascinating book. It's Matthew McConaughey's Greenlights.
Yeah, this one's interesting. Our sources are excerpts directly from the book itself.
And our mission, really, is to explore the stories, the insights, the philosophies he shares in there.
Right. It's kind of like trying to understand his personal playbook for life, how
Right.
he navigates things.
A playbook. I like that framing. So what is Greenlights fundamentally? What's the core idea?
Well, he calls it an approach book, which I
Yeah.
think is fitting. And yeah, a playbook. It's built from his own life, adventures, successes, failures too.
Okay.
And the central metaphor, the title, is this idea of life being like driving, maybe on an Autobahn, he says, and you're looking for those green lights.
Signals that say, go, proceed.
Exactly. Keep moving forward.
But life isn't all green lights, obviously. There are always obstacles, red lights.
Oh, absolutely. He's very upfront about that. He uses the phrase stepping in shit, which is pretty evocative.
Yeah, definitely paints a picture.
But his view is that pain, loss, challenges, they aren't just roadblocks. They're actually teachers.
Okay.
And humor for him is a key tool. It helps him process it all, helps him scrape it off the boots and carry on.
That's a great image. Scrape it off and keep going.
Yep.
So when you hit one of those inevitable red lights or step in the,
Wow.
What's the approach then?
That's where he talks about getting relative with the inevitable. It's a core idea.
Relative with the inevitable. What does that mean exactly?
So the situation itself, the outcome might be inevitable, set in stone maybe, but how you respond to it, how you frame it, that's relative. That's where your choice lies.
Okay. So you have options even when things seem fixed.
Right. He boils it down to three choices. Persist, like push through it, pivot, change direction, or concede, accept it for now, live to fight another day.
Persist, pivot, or concede. So the situation is inevitable, but your reaction is relative. It's about finding your agency.
Exactly. That's where you reclaim your power, even in tough spots.
Where did these kinds of philosophies come from? Let's talk about his background, his family.
Well, it sounds like quite the upbringing. He's the youngest of three boys, and his parents, get this, they divorced each other twice and married each other 3 times.
3 times. Wow. That's a lot. What was that home environment like?
He describes it as a place where they definitely said, I love you a lot, and meant it. But they also fought hard, passionately, but then they didn't seem to hold grudges. He even mentions this pretty intense, almost shocking detail about his dad breaking his mom's finger 4 times to get her hand out of his face as like their way of loving each other.
Okay, yeah. Intense is definitely the word. How did that translate into discipline? What kind of things got him into trouble?
It wasn't always, major stuff. He mentions getting whipped for things like answering to Matt. He had to be Matthew. Or saying, I hate you, or even saying, I can't. Lying about stealing a pizza, too. But he makes a really key distinction. The real trouble, the deep stuff, was reserved for using words that hurt. Things that could damage him, his character, his integrity.
So like curse words weren't the big deal?
He says he got his mouth washed out with soap for cursing, sure, but lying, saying hateful things, things that showed a lack of character that brought serious consequences. It was about protecting him from himself in a way.
That's interesting. Focus on character over minor rule breaking.
Exactly. It defined who he was becoming. Like, he tells this story about threatening to run away once.
Yeah. What?
His parents just calmly packed his bags for him.
Seriously?
Yeah. It wasn't just calling his bluff. It was showing him, look, these are the rules. We expect you to follow them. We don't just hope you will. He said that taught him that denied expectations cut deeper than denied hopes.
Wow. That's a powerful way to learn that lesson. And the family history itself sounds pretty colorful. Cattle thieves. Riverboat gamblers.
Yeah, a bodyguard for Al Capone even. Definitely not your typical suburban background. Adds a layer of independence and maybe a bit of wildness to his roots.
And that story about his dad missing his birth, suspecting he wasn't his son, that adds another layer of complexity.
It really does. His dad went to the bar instead. It's heavy, right? But McConaughey talks about how growing up, wanting to be a father himself became this huge driving force, maybe partly because of that complicated start with his own dad.
And there was another really intense story involving his brother Mike fighting their dad.
Oh, the pipe incident.
Yeah.
His dad wanted Mike to help him steal a pipe from somewhere.
Steal a pipe.
Yeah, and Mike refused. Stood up to him, it got physical, and Mike actually ended up hitting his dad with a 2x4. Knocked him out cold.
Wait.
Mike was apparently terrified, thought he'd killed him, but when his dad came to, he wasn't mad about being hit. He saw it as Mike defending his principles, standing up for what was right. It was this incredibly brutal but strangely validating moment for Mike.
Wow. It paints such a picture of this really unconventional family dynamic. Okay, so moving past childhood, he talks about finding independence, testing boundaries. How did that start?
Well, he distinguishes between growing up in Uvalde, Texas, where he says he learned to deal with things, and then moving to Longview, Texas during the oil boom, which is where he learned to dream.
Deal versus dream, okay. And Longview is where the famous treehouse story comes in.
Exactly. He spots this lumber yard near his new house, decides he needs that lumber for a treehouse.
Needs it.
Needs it. And this wasn't just a kid grabbing some wood. He planned it like a heist. Wire cutters, sneaking out at night, shimmying under the fence, dragging boards back one by one. He talks about the fear, but also the incredible excitement.
So it was like an early mission, creating his own space.
Yeah, and it ties into another idea he brings up a lot. Create structure so you can have freedom.
How does the stolen lumber fit that?
Well, the act of getting the lumber, the planning, the risk that was creating the means. The tree house itself was the structure. And having that space, built with his own illicit effort, gave him this sense of freedom, of ownership.
Right, like you have to build the foundation first.
Exactly. He has these sayings like, earn your Saturdays. The idea is when you're starting something new, discipline and structure are crucial. You put in the work, take the responsibility first. Then, once you have the skill, the knowledge, then you get the freedom to improvise, to really let your freak flag fly, as he puts it.
Build the stage before you dance on it.
Pretty much. And he actually credits some of this attitude to his mom. He calls her a true baller.
A true baller. What does he mean?
She had this philosophy of, well, he calls it denial, but it's more like radical ownership and maybe bending the rules a bit.
How so?
Her take was, if you understood something, you owned it. Full stop. Didn't matter if you came up with it. He jokes she thought plagiarism was no big deal because, shit, they'll probably never find out.
That's here.
And if they do, all they can do is blame you and take your medal back, so fuck him. He says she was basically training him to be an actor, stepping into other people's realities long before he knew it. He tells the story about her in a deposition for some oil of mink thing.
Oil of mink.
Yeah, some pyramid scheme maybe. Anyway, she just flat out denied everything, despite evidence pointing her way. Just total confidence. That was peak baller mom for him.
A certain kind of boldness, for sure. Okay, probably one of the most formative experiences he writes about is that year in Australia, the walkabout.
Oh, yeah. He calls it a crucible of identity, and it really sounds like it. A trial by fire.
He expected something different.
Completely. He was thinking Sydney, sunshine, beaches. He lands and ends up in Gorokan. Population 305. 5 miles down a dusty track, living with this family, the Dooleys.
A bit of a shock to the system. What made it, as he calls it, a living mental hell?
It was a lot of things. The isolation was huge. He tried being vegetarian by literally eating a head of iceberg lettuce with ketchup every night.
Oh, wow.
He started running constantly, like 6 miles a day, got super thin. There was the culture clash, like the host dad, Norvell, giving him a lecture about some British equestrian after he cheered for the U.S. winning a relay. Just awkward.
And the incident with Meredith being asked to kiss her.
Yeah, that was a big one. Marjorie, the host mom, just demands he kiss her niece on the lippies in front of everyone. He refused, said flat out that's not fair to anyone involved.
Standing his ground there. But the real turning point, the crucible moment, was refusing to call the host parents mom and pop, wasn't it?
That was it. After months, 148 days, he says, of trying to fit in, be polite, go along with things, they demanded this. And he describes this moment of absolute clarity. Head, heart, gut, everything screamed no.
It wasn't just about names.
No. He realized it wasn't just a cultural difference he could adapt to. This was fundamental to who he was. And if that made him different, well, he wasn't going to apologize for it anymore. It was about his own identity.
He drew a line in the sand. In the middle of nowhere, basically.
Exactly. Taking responsibility for himself, for his beliefs, even when it was uncomfortable and isolating. That act of choosing, of judging the situation for himself, it gave him an identity he felt he lacked before.
And that connects to his idea of boundaries to freedom.
Yeah. By setting that boundary, by removing something that caused friction with his core self, he actually found more freedom to be authentically himself.
And he stayed the whole year, even though it was so tough.
Yeah.
Because he'd shaken hands on it.
Yep. He felt bound by his word, by that handshake deal. Upholding his father's sense of integrity, he says, no going back. Even though it was hell at the time, looking back, he sees it as a necessary red light that ultimately became a good fortune, teaching him self-reliance.
And then the twist at the end, getting rescued by another family, the Harringtons, and finding out everyone knew the Dooleys were eccentric.
He calls it the big Australian prank. Apparently, the local Rotary Club, everyone knew the Dooleys were crazy. His friend Connor Harrington's family finally took him in for the last part of the year. It's almost darkly funny after everything he went through.
Incredible. So after surviving Australia, he heads back, figures out college. Why UT Austin instead of SMU?
Couple of reasons. One was money. His dad's finances were shaky after the oil bust. Potential bankruptcy looming. UT was way cheaper, like $5K a year versus $18K for SMU.
Big difference.
Huge. Plus, his brother Pat gave him this great pitch for Austin. Said it was a place where you can walk into anywhere in your flip-flops. All you got to be is yourself. That appealed to him.
And then there's that moment before a psych final.
Mm-hmm.
He reads a completely different book.
Yeah, it's a great story. Instead of cramming his notes, he picks up Og Mandino's The Greatest Salesman in the World, reads it straight through, and scroll one just hits him. I will form good habits and become their slave. He realized that pretending he wanted to be a lawyer, that was a bad habit. It was a lie he was living.
And that's what sparks the big pivot. From law to film.
That was the catalyst. He calls his dad, totally nervous, right, expecting pushback. His dad, working class guy, wanted that lawyer son.
Yeah, bet.
Long pause on the phone. Then his dad just says, well, don't half-ass it.
Classic. Permission granted, but with a clear expectation.
Exactly. But film school itself wasn't exactly smooth sailing either. He felt like an outcast.
Yeah. He describes being the lone frat guy in a sea of like goth, pale, artsy film students. Felt a clash with professors who dismissed blockbusters he loved in favor of obscure art films. Mm-hmm. He actually started to doubt his own taste, his own instincts. Said he started untucking my shirt, trying to blend in. It was another one of those tests. Conform or be yourself. And around this time, he was working at Catfish Station. What did he learn there?
He mentions that job specifically because it taught him about values. He says values travel. He was the only white waiter there, serving mostly black customers. Tips were low at first.
Tough gig.
Yeah, but he stuck with it for 2 years. And he says he learned more than just tolerance. He learned to accept differences, sure, but more importantly, to salute distinctions, to actually appreciate and value what makes people unique, not just put up with it.
That's a really valuable lesson.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump ahead. Meeting Camilla, starting a family. That seems like a huge turning point, leading to a career shift, too.
Oh, meeting Camila sounds like a major green light moment for him. He describes seeing her across a bar and just, bam, what is immediate connection?
Love at first sight? Or lust, maybe.
Maybe a bit of both. But he definitely had to work for it. She didn't just fall into his arms. Nope. He waved her over. She initially said no to going back to his place. Then fate intervened. Her car got towed. He offered a ride, chauffeur involved, got her to his place. She decided to leave. He realized the chauffeur had vanished. It was a whole saga. But he says even now, she's the only woman he's ever really wanted.
He has some interesting ways of talking about relationships.
He does. Calls her his "Oh Lady of Good Hope." Says his favorite thing is to see you, not make you happy. Respecting her autonomy seems key. Like when she visited him filming in Australia, he got her own room, her own key, called it wise real estate to claim for her.
And the wide shot versus close-up idea.
Right. Some relationships, maybe in-laws or colleagues, work better from a distance, the wide shot. Others, spouse, kids, best friends, need intimacy, detail, frequency. The close-up. You need both types.
Makes sense. What about his mom's reaction when he told her Camila was pregnant before they were married?
Oh, that was pure McConaughey mom. Apparently she just yelled, no, 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 Matthew, this is out of order. Just totally flipped out about the sequence of events.
Uh-huh.
But then, classic move, she calls back later wanting to use whiteout on the whole conversation. Says everybody deserves a do-over. It shows that family trait of fighting hard but moving on fast.
That ability to reset is something. Okay, so this period leads to the big career shift away from romantic comedies. What pushed him?
It seems like a confluence of three major life events. First, his father's death. He calls it a seminal rite of passage. Suddenly, no more safety net. Time to grow up, stop dreaming and start dealing, become a man.
That's huge.
Then, soon after, a family emergency pulled him back to Texas, shaking his foundations again. And finally, becoming a father himself when Levi was born. He says death, crisis, newborns, they shake your floor, give you clarity, remind of your mortality, and hence give you courage.
Wow. So all that gave him the courage to step away from the rom-coms, even though he was hugely successful there. That must have felt like a massive risk.
Oh, enormous, financially, professionally. His money guy confirmed he could afford a break, but his agent was like, what? Hollywood likes boxes, right? If you step out of your lane, pass on too many scripts, they might just stop calling. He knew it wasn't personal, just the business, but the risk of becoming irrelevant was real.
How did Camila handle that decision?
He describes this really emotional conversation, tears, prayers. They made a deal. If he was going to do this, pivot his career, he had to go all in. No half-ascended. She knew it might mean some lean times, dry weather for a while, as she put it, but she was fully supportive.
That's real partnership.
Yeah.
He also talks about the idea of the honeymoon glow in marriage.
Yeah, he thinks trying to maintain that constant high-wattage glow is a fool's errand fantasy, like trying to keep a 120-watt bulb burning forever. It's unrealistic, unfair.
So what's real love then, according to him?
He contrasts that shiny animated movie, Honeymoon, with where real love actually lives. Real love cares, hurts, understands, falls down, and gets back up. It's messy, human, not always pretty, but it's authentic.
And humor, Camila, and the kids got him through that self-induced hiatus from acting.
Definitely. Humor kept him sane, Camilla provided the bedrock support, and having young kids gave him focus and purpose beyond his career anxieties. It reinforced his belief in things like delayed gratification, making tough choices now for a better future, like buying straw hats in the winter.
But it was still a tough time, not working.
Absolutely. He admits to real anxiety. Acting had been his thing for nearly 20 years. He needed work for his sense of self-significance, so he was fighting this internal battle, wanting the validation of any job versus holding out for work that felt true to who he was now.
Which led him eventually to those dramatic roles like Dallas Buyers Club.
Exactly. Meeting director Jean-Marc Vallée for that felt like a click. He loved the script's mix of unsentimental humor and heart with anarchy. He was already lean for Magic Mike and then lost even more weight for Ron Woodroof. Really committed.
And then Wolf of Wall Street. McConaughey was unforgettable.
Yeah, he calls Hana's dialogue launchpad lines, saw cocaine and hookers as the character's secret sauce, and just ran with it. Improvised a lot. Apparently that chest-thumping hum, that was his thing. And DiCaprio suggested putting it in the scene. Scorsese let him play.
And he was just convinced Dallas Buyers Club was going to happen, even when the money wasn't there.
Total conviction. Just kept telling his agent, we're shooting in the fall. He had his own internal green light, regardless of the external red lights. No asking permission, just moving forward.
Around this time, his son Levi asks about him and Camila not being married, why she didn't have his last name. How did he handle that?
It's a great parenting moment in the book. He knew he had to give an answer Levi would understand and remember. He basically said, look, I want to marry Mama, but I don't feel the need to yet. I want to do it when it feels like something I need to do.
Interesting distinction. Want versus need.
Exactly. So he proposed when he finally felt that need. Christmas Day, 2011.
And she said yes.
She did. But they didn't rush the wedding. Then, 5 months later, she hands him an invitation to his own wedding.
He planned it.
And, plot twist, she also hands him an ultrasound. Third baby on the way. He jokes it was like his mom giving his dad an ultimatum back in the day, but just with an extra bonus.
Life keeps happening. So they get married, have their third child, Livingston, joining Levi and Vida. He talks about feeling this deep fulfillment, married with 3 children like my father, and finding inspiration more in lived truth than abstract ideas.
And then came True Detective, Rust Cole.
Huge role. He was actually offered the part of Marty Hart first, Woody Harrelson's character.
Really?
Yeah. But he read the script and was just completely drawn to Rustin Cole, called him the greatest detective I'd ever met, said the script was white hot on the page and playing Rust made him sweat in my boots. He needed to be that guy.
So he's doing these incredible, intense, critically acclaimed roles. But he mentions they weren't always big box office successes. Right. He noticed the empty seats, loved the work, loved the characters, the process, but acknowledged that something wasn't quite translating to a mass audience financially.
Did that make him question the path he'd chosen?
Not the work itself, interestingly. He says the relative lack of box office success actually made him more committed to the craft, to the process of acting. He loved building and owning my man, getting lost and found in these complex characters.
But then came another major realization, right?
Yeah.
About his own life versus the roles.
This is maybe the core pivot point of the book leading to writing it. He started feeling like his characters, his movie life, felt more vital than who I was in the story that was my life.
Wow.
Yeah, he felt more alive in my movies than in my life. Like he was seeing reflections, impressions in the mirror, rather than living his own authentic story day to day.
You realize he'd flipped the script.
Exactly. His professional life was full of risk and depth, but his personal life felt less so by comparison. And that sparked a decision. Time to make a change. Not just career-wise, but personally. Quit acting like me. Be me.
And that is what led him to actually write Greenlights.
That's the impetus. He gathered up 35 years of journals, notebooks, diaries.
35 years. That's a lot of history.
Yeah, and he took them off-grid to desolate places, the desert, a cabin, a river, even just motels, to be alone with them, to seek their prudence, hear their story, and basically take inventory on my investment.
Yeah, that sounds intense, being alone with 35 years of yourself.
He calls it a scary proposition. You're alone with the one person I can't get rid of. He knew confronting his past, his choices, could get bloody.
What kind of insights came out of that deep dive into his own journals?
He reflects on his 20s and 30s as being sort of contradictory, more conservative in a way, focused on eliminating things that went against his grain, not running red lights. He basically survived. But his 40s felt different, more affirming, more liberal, playing offense, putting his truths into action, doubling down on what nourished him. He felt he created more green lights, saw how past hardships were actually blessings. He wasn't just surviving, he thrived.
That's a powerful arc. Surviving to thriving through intentional choices.
It really is. He also connects the whole 2020 pandemic experience to this, calls it a global red light year that kind of forced everyone into a similar inward look, taking inventory. Makes you wonder how much we really changed for good.
Good question. Did he draw any insights from older generations? He mentioned spending time in retirement communities.
Yeah, he found them fascinating, calls the residents revolutionaries, anarchists, said they laugh at everything, even love being laughed at. They gave him blunt life advice like just keep having fun.
Simple, but maybe profound.
Right. And they emphasized family, greatest achievement is your kids, grandkids twice as nice. Being around them was a reminder of mortality, sure, but also invigorating, seeing their freedom from pretense.
So how does he wrap up his philosophy on handling life's ups and downs now?
He talks about the science of satisfaction, finding contentment even amidst difficulties. Like, try to design your own weather when you can. Control what you can. But if you're caught in a storm you can't control, pray for luck and just make the best of it.
Acceptance and action.
Yeah. And the goal is to dance with time and redeem it. Because, and this is a great line, we don't live longer when we try not to die. We live longer when we're too busy living.
Wow. That really lands. And this all builds towards his final distinction between the resume and the eulogy.
Exactly. Life is the resume. It's relative, it's active, it's a verb with regard. It's the story you are writing, chapter by chapter, through your choices and actions.
It's death.
Death is the eulogy. That's inevitable. It's the end point, a noun without regard. It's the story that gets told about you based on the resume you lived.
So the sole objective, as he calls it, is begin with the end in mind.
Precisely. Live your life, build that resume in such a way that you look forward to looking back. Make choices today that write the chapters you want your eulogy to reflect. It brings a real sense of purpose to the everyday.
That is a really profound way to think about it. Well, thank you for walking us through this deep dive into Matthew McConaughey's Greenlights. from the unique family lessons and that Australian crucible.
To finding his own path in Hollywood, shifting gears and figuring out how to live authentically.
It really is a fascinating playbook full of memorable stories and takeaways.
Definitely a perspective that makes you think about your own signals in life, those green, yellow, and red lights.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Daily Review. We really hope you enjoyed this exploration.
And remember, if you did enjoy it, please subscribe, rate, and maybe check out the link in the description if you want to grab a copy of Greenlights. It helps us keep doing this.
Absolutely. And as we leave you today, here's a final thought to chew on, building on that resume and eulogy idea. Thinking about the story you ultimately want told about your life, what choices are you making right now today to write that next chapter?
How are you navigating your own green lights, and what are you learning from the red ones? Something to reflect on.
Until next time, keep reading, keep exploring.